Geez, dude, you need to change your blinker fluid.
That's not a thing.
And your thoracic couplet is totally shot.
Really?
It is.
Look, nothing gets by me. Just like this oil filter. Nothing gets by Purolator.
Hey, if you're using Purolator Boss, you know your stuff.
Oh yeah, protection up to 15,000 miles.
Ooh, but you really should replace your Vesuvius valve.
Stop talking.
Purolator oil, air, and cabin air filters. Nothing gets by us. Available at Advance Auto Parts, Pep Boys, and other fine retailers.
Blog Talk Radio.
Live from Fort Bragg's backyard, this is the show that put the 110 Nation on the map. There is only one nation, the 110 Nation, and you're listening to the 110 Nation Sports Show, covering each and every sport across the board. There is no sport too large or too little. It's time to talk the talk. Here we go. Here's the man, the founder, and your host, Mr. CJ Sports.
He's not a real good. Thanks for tuning into the 110 Nation Sports Show. I am your host, Mr. CJ Sports. You can check me out at CJ Sports 1. You can check out the 110 Nation at 110 Nation. Also, check us out on Facebook, my personal fan page, Mr. CJ Sports, the 110 Nation fan page, 110 Nation Sports. Also, check us out at www.110nationsports.com for all the latest going on here at the 110 Nation. Try to do 20 things at once. Oh, goodness. Not quite the day that I was hoping for. For those that was listening to last night's show knew I was supposed to have a big inspection today, so I was up at 3:30 this morning. Yes, 3:30 this morning so I could go to work. And basically get on my hands and knees and pick concrete so that I was good for my inspection this morning. Get there, get it all painted, get it open, get everything. And 6 o'clock, come to find out they'd sent an email and canceled our big inspection. Postponed it until 10 days from now, as they add meetings. I'm assuming to do with the gas shortage that is going on here in the southeast. Not quite 100% sure. So. Wasn't the greatest of ways to get the day started, but nonetheless, my island is my concrete. What do you say? My concrete of my island is well painted in the right color. Unfortunately, I went to paint it last night after the show. That was the plan last night, and my boss used tan in the description of what color that this is was supposed to be. Well, tan is nowhere, should not even been a word reference to the color that needed to be painted out there. So I got back here about 11 o'clock. Shorty took off, went to go exchange the paint, got back about midnight. That's about the time I got to roll in bed and turn around and be up at 3:30. I wanted to be a little more productive this afternoon, get some things done here at the 110 Nation. But honestly, I left a couple hours early so I could come home and get some sleep. That was the only thing really on my mind as I rolled out at 1 o'clock this afternoon. But we're here. Glad to be here. I wanted to talk a little bit about this yesterday, and I didn't really jump into this. And I got Mike in the studio. Mike's actually going to get on here in a few minutes and talk and kind of get things rolling. get things rolling here, because I have things to take care of and kids to take care of, and not to say too badly needed. Dinner's just getting out of the oven, so Mike's got some things that he wants to jump in and talk about here in a second. But I wanted to talk just for a brief moment before we get into tonight's show about support. You know, we got the opportunity, Shorty and myself, and the kids as well anyway, to go to Florence Motor Speedway on Saturday, and had an opportunity to show some support for Kayla Lyons and her racing career. Kayla, for those that are kind of new to the show or never happened to, have caught her on the show, she's an up-and-coming driver. I want to say 17 years old. Father pretty much, is the only one involved in her life. I don't know her whole personal situation. I just know her father is the one raising her and her sister. And, does everything he can to make sure that not only Kayla, but both of them, and I want to say her sister's name is Lee, I can't remember off the top of my head, are able to, try to accomplish their dreams. And, when you have an opportunity to have somebody on the show that shows the motivation in life to see them really try and see the whole family try to make their career be possible. It's really an inspiring story. I tell people all the time, in the 5 years that I've done this, I pretty much could have bought a house. I probably could have bought a house and bought a nice, and I do it because this is what I passionately want to do. And this is, what, I want to retire doing. I want us to be in a location. I want us to be on 24/7. I want to have a staff of riders riding for us. I want, my ultimate goal here is I want to be able to provide career opportunities, to know that I impactfully, in a positive way, help families and make it possible for those to have careers that they want to have. And yes, it'd be nice to be able to travel every week and go to these sporting events and show the support to our guests. But passionately, that's what I want. And when you get to see a story such as this, it only wants you to try to be even more supportive and show your support and try to help make that dream come possible. But it also makes you realize how really little that you're actually doing to fulfill your own career, and it makes you want to be more motivated. To watching the Lions family and watching them the sacrifices that are made, the time that's invested, and I sit there and think about this last weekend alone. I got up at 4:30 in the morning on Friday, went to work, got off about 9ish, got changed, picked up the rental car. Well, I think 8ish, picked up the rental, got changed and all that stuff to run to Charlotte and be out there for 6 hours in the very warm weather. I know I was sweating all day long out there on the flat top underneath the sun. To turn around and drive back that night, to come back to produce a show, to get to bed about midnight, turn around the next morning to get up at 4:30 in the morning, and be stuck until 9ish or whatever time it was, 9:30. And yes, I was unable to go back to Charlotte the next day, but then we turned around, we hauled up in the car, we went down to Florence Motor Speedway, a 2-hour haul. It was just let's do this. It wasn't something we had planned. It was one of those things. Okay, do I want to go to Charlotte and get there at 12:30, 1 o'clock, to turn around and have to leave at 4 o'clock, only spend 3 hours out there for 4 hours worth of driving or so, or do we just want to spend 2 hours driving, make a little, family ordeal out of it, be able to spend a few hours, quite a few hours out the track. And I think we got there, 8-ish? No, we got there 6:30, 6:30. And, of course, we didn't leave. Of course, the rain delay and the bad wreck, made it. We didn't leave until 1-ish. 1:11. So, I mean, we was there for a good 8 hours or so, 7, 8 hours. And then I drove back and got in about 3:45, took a 45-minute nap, was back up 4:30 to go back and work at 5 o'clock. I sit there, and people think about, God, you got it so made. You must be great at this, we're going to Kentucky this weekend and everything else. As fun as it is, it's not all fun and games. There's a lot of sacrifices to be made. There's a lot of sleepless weekends. There's a lot of sleeping in the car weekends. There's a lot of falling asleep at the desk nights. And, I've had discussion with Mike quite a few times. There's been a few times that I've dozed off because of the way my schedule is and everything else, where I'm dozing off during shows and everything else. But yet after you hear an inspiring story and get the opportunity to be out there and watch them try to fulfill their dreams and the sacrifices they make, you quickly realize that your sacrifices are really child's play compared to, some of these other, dreams and sacrifices. And it makes you, want to even sacrifice more and, be even more dedicated. I love having the opportunity to show our support for our athletes. It was right after I saw Kayla's post, and we had already contacted them and let them know that, this is what our plans were. Hannah Newhouse was here at the Myrtle Beach Speedway, and, that was one of those things that if we wouldn't have contacted one, we would have contacted the other and made, the trip. We got Gus Dean coming on the ball night. He was out at Myrtle as well. So we would have had two of our guests in that situation. The difference maker to me is, I've had Kayla on many times, and we know how supportive she is, and we know her story, and we've had the opportunity. As a matter of fact, Shorty and I last year at the Chip Canasty VIP event, we was able to get Kayla in with us and, got to spend some time with her and whatnot. So, I love having the opportunity to be able to show the support and be involved, and it's just a really great feeling. I think at times when people listen to the show and follow us on Facebook and Twitter, they just say they just have these people on and just so they can fill time and have athletes that say they have athletes on the show and everything else. It's a cherry on the top. Yes, it's great. I know tomorrow night Gus Dean's going to be on for 30 minutes or 30 minutes for the show. Already locked, loaded. Don't really have nothing to sweat. But it's much deeper than that. Miss Lee keeps up with these different athletes, their PRs, their team owners, everything else. It builds a relationship with them. I try to stay personally involved with many of our guests. I get to have conversations with different people that we've had on the show at different times, and it's great. But to be able to build these relationships and see the support and be able to show the support, that right there is so much more to us here at the 110 Nation. And then just saying, hey, we got this person on the show or we got that person on the show, it's much deeper than that. And, I just wanted to talk about it for a second and take an opportunity, one, to thank everybody that listens to the show. Their sacrifices made right there. All the things you could be doing right now, no matter if it's 8 o'clock, 8:15 in the East Coast like we are right now, or 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon out in the West Coast, or anywhere in between or anywhere across the world that listens to the show. Thanks to the I-95 Sports Network, thanks to Mile High Radio Network, a couple other things that we're working on to partner up with to provide more opportunities for our show to be heard. You make a sacrifice. You could be doing this or you could be doing that or listen to this or listen to that, and yet you listening to the show. And, I greatly and we greatly appreciate that. From Miss Lee, from everything she does behind the scenes, Izzo, who will be on here at 9:30 to talk about the World Cup and any other NHL stuff. Mike, who has helped co-host the show for the last few weeks and has this show on Friday nights, Hot Laughs with Staff. If it's Steve and Chris, Thursday nights, Racing with Big Sweat. Steve and myself, Monday nights, Rubbin' is Racing. Whatever the case may be, Shorty. She used to be part of the show. Now she just reaps the benefits of being able to travel with me at this point. And she is our photographer. She does a phenomenal job. I will never forget going to the Coke 0400 in Daytona. We weren't even media. We weren't there for a media event anyway. We were there on just pure pleasure. And all you had to do was point in a direction, and Shorty was gone. And, of course, her being a little bit short, well, a lot shorter than everybody else, she could slip into areas that other people, it was like a little kid sliding in between hips and everything else. And we didn't have to point. There was something going on. She was gone. She was running. It wasn't. She walked over to a picture. She took off. She ran. But we definitely appreciate the support, and this is something that we will continue to do. This is something that here at the 110 Nation we're going to get more involved with, showing support and going to more of the events. Not just big-name events, NASCAR events, NHL events, NCAA events. Yes, they've been great over the last few years. But even more events that have to do with our guests and what they have going on. And it is something that is important to us, and it's an opportunity that, it fell in our lap. It's just not something that I planned 5.5 years ago. It's not something that Miss Lee had planned 3 years ago, almost to this point, to this date, getting involved. It's not what Mike was planning on a few months ago, a handful of months ago at this point, when he joined in. And I could go down the list, and we greatly appreciate the support. We greatly appreciate being able to be involved with so many different lives and so many different stories. And it just truly, it's a blessing. But I just want to thank everybody for listening in, help show the support. The numbers continue to grow. I'm impressed every single day to see the growth. Like I said, I got to thank Fit for Life. I got to thank Snafu Seasoning for help make the financial burden a little bit easier for us. If you're out there and you're interested, we can talk some numbers. We got a plan for everybody. I think the exposure we get through all the networks we're involved with and the syndications that we have, you'd be rather pleased the bang for the buck that you'll get. So, if you're out there listening, all you do is send me at mrcjsports@gmail.com. But I just want to thank everybody for the support and let everybody know how much we do cherish the opportunities we get. It's not about just bringing people on the show. It's about building relationships here. I know that you don't see that at ESPN. You don't see that at Fox Sports. You don't see that in a lot of other shows. We go a lot deeper than that, building relationships and partnerships and everything else. And I just got to thank everybody for that. But anyway, got Mike in the studio. Got to plug him in here on the show. As he's got some things to talk about, let us know what's going on Friday night. 8 p.m. Got one show being on 9 o'clock. It screws me up. I don't know why. But one show, it screws me up every time. Everybody loving my sign. Come see me. We had gas. Not everybody has gas in our area, and we were one of the first ones. Everybody's starting to get some. If you're not listening to the show in the Southeast and wondering about the gas situation, according to my fuel guy, that the problem should be fixed by the end of this week, and where everybody's going to start getting the fuel back up to where it should be, and by the beginning of next week, everybody should be on regular schedules, and everybody's fuel problems should be fixed at that point. So as this week continues on, it's only going to get better and better till next week, and things will be back to normal. So gotta. But let's get Mike in the studio. Let's get things kicked off. Let's get talking some sports. We got some stories to talk about. We got some things in NASCAR. Thank you, Chicago Bears, for screwing me out of winning a football pool. Jay Cutler, I'm really disappointed in how garbage you are. We talked some NFL. We got the NCAA new new top 25 out to talk a little bit about that. Ohio State, OH, doing their thing, showing the world that they deserve to be where they're at, and even possibly even better. Alabama struggled to get past their opponent last week. But anyway, Mike, how you doing tonight?
How you doing, CJ? Well, I could have told you about Jay Cutler, but we won't go there right now. But anyway, as far as Friday night, I talked today to the wife of the late model champion, and she's going to see if he can be on Friday night and touch base with him. Obviously, being his wife, she'll have an easier time than I will. But he could be on, and I'm going to try to get a couple of champions from Riverhead, which were crowned Saturday night. A couple of them are return guests. For example, Roger Turbish, who won the truck title and also ran in the New England Truck Series along with Dave Koenig. But they can be on, and so I have a couple of possibilities, and also the support staff for the second hour. I've got a couple of feelers out on some people, and I'll be able to know more about by tomorrow and get things firmed up. As far as my website, as far as my social media, you can get me at my personal Facebook page, the 110 Nation pages, where I post and write things. And I put up two Riverhead blogs, one of which covers last week's action, Saturday night only, and the other one covers the champions and those people that were named for season-long wins, season-long titles. So I split the blog up into two, because you'll notice that the winners of the races on Saturday night, in all cases, were not the champions. We had some people that won like their first event of the year, and situations like that. So I made two separate blogs for Saturday and one for Saturday night's wins and one for the champions of the season. So you can go to the 110 Nation blog site and read those. As far as my plan, as far as long term, I've already discussed with CJ that I will be also riding on golf. The next tournament will be this week. I've already started to do that with the Olympics and any of the PGA tournaments that follow. I'm plugged into PGAtour.com, so I'll be able to do that in more detail. And then there's, after this week, there is maybe 2 or 3 more tiny tournaments. That is to say, not as famous as the ones you might see on TV on a regular basis, but they are running in November and December. And then after Christmas, the season starts again in February, and that's the 2017 season, obviously, and that kicks off, I believe, in February. So that'll be interesting to get more involved with. Also, for you fans that follow my show and all our shows here, as CJ was mentioning, I'm asking that you go over to the Hot Laps with Stats fan page and pick up on the archive where I've archived every show from May 12th, which was our debut show. Jeffrey Rogers and Tracy Clark were my two guests on that particular program, and run down the archive and see the guests, which I have listed also on each. Well, I have it listed on a post, and then also on the separate archive for each program. The my catalog who is on that particular site, and click that button and listen to that show. And pick your favorites if you have one particular, and we will take the consensus, because on October the 7th, CJ and Jordy will be on the road and unable to produce in studio, so we will be rebroadcasting a former program, a program that's already aired, rebroadcasting a episode of Hot Laps for Stats, and if we don't get a consensus from you fans, which I wanted to do initially, I will simply pick 3 of my favorites and do a little hocus pocus and pick one, and that'll be the one that we rebroadcast on October the 7th. So, a lot of things going on in the next 2 weeks or so with CJ being on the road and, juggling programs and whatever, but that's the input for the fans. And I appreciate your input, as we all do, for any program, but especially with mine, with me asking for guest suggestions. If you know of a guest that runs in your track that I might not be familiar with, as familiar as I am with Riverhead, although I try to keep up with everybody, I'm sure I know there are some that slip through the cracks on me. So if you're a resident of like Connecticut or Jersey and you have one particular driver that is doing well, that's done well in 2016, let me know, and we will try to book him or her for a show on Friday, on a given Friday night, as I hope to be, booking people with the off season as well, and discussing what they will be doing with their cars and whether they're moving up or whatever they're doing in 2017. So that's interesting. That's an interesting thing for the off season, and one of my plans for then especially is to get those competitors that we couldn't get on a Friday because they were competing and racing that particular night and couldn't get them on the live show. I want to get them during the off season and talk to them a little bit about their 2016 season, as well as what's coming up next season for them as well, before they have to get strapped back up into the cars and start all over again. So that's a way that we can touch base with the Friday night competitors, is basically what I call them, the people that run Stafford when we have a live program on Friday. That's when we will try and book, or I will try and book the Stafford drivers as well during the off season, when they have 15 or 20 minutes to have a conversation on the radio with us. As far as what's going on with the Sprint Cup situation, very interesting thing that CJ touched on last night, I guess that broke almost as we went off the air last night, was the discrimination lawsuit filed by a gentleman about the lack of diversity specifically, I guess, people of color within NASCAR. And I have, it's a very tricky thing to talk about, but you can ruffle some feathers. But I saw that this gentleman, additionally to what CJ read last night, I read the whole article and also saw something on a video that this gentleman, and specifically Steve Harvey, who has a TV show and a radio show of his own, mentioned that this gentleman had touched base with him at one point in time, and was mentioning now Steve Harvey is originally from Atlanta, and I'm in Georgia right now, but I'm like an hour and a half outside of Atlanta and don't get there a lot. But just by nature of being close by, I got a chance to play the video. And this gentleman had also, at one time, tried to get Steve Harvey to help him boycott Coca-Cola by, he was going to take a group of youngsters, youth, who he mentors, and I guess that's the idea of the lawsuit, in his saying that his group didn't get enough chances to either get into NASCAR or get involved with NASCAR, or whatever his gripe is, particularly in relation to his own group that he's involved in. But he also attempted to do this years ago with Coca-Cola Bottling Company. And Steve Harvey was mentioning today on his video that he told the gentleman flat out, I will do anything for disadvantage and youth, any youth program, but I am not going to help you boycott Coca-Cola, because Coca-Cola didn't do anything to me and Coca-Cola didn't do anything to you. And by nature of what I heard on Steve Harvey's program, as well as putting 2 and 2 together and hopefully getting something other than 5, I came to the conclusion that this gentleman likes to shake trees and create difficulty for people, and basically for corporations. If he's doing this in the past with Coca-Cola and such, and then also NASCAR, it's apparent that he, or apparent to me anyway, that he probably likes to create difficulty. So next, that we'll talk about that a little bit, but that, and also the other main story that came out, as far as penalties to Truex, I will touch on that vaguely, because that announcement was made, won't be made before Wednesday, before tomorrow, which is normal the time of week, the time of day, the time of the week that they usually make those type of announcements on a weekly basis. But the other story that broke probably a little bit before the one CJ was reading, because I saw that yesterday and didn't get a chance to really address it. On last night's program was Kurt Busch, and the woman, and this one will hit, unfortunately, CJ, where he lives, because of the military connection, as well as my dad. Kurt Busch, I guess it was his former girlfriend at one time. She had back when filed a suit against Kurt Busch, saying he was a domestic violence. She was a domestic violence victim, And that same lady came up in the news again, not for anything Kurt Busch did this time, but for defrauding a military charity of money and lying to the IRS. So these are two rather interesting individuals, CJ, who obviously should have troublemaker before their name, I think. But again, that's my opinion. And but obviously, some interesting things going on, and I guess people at times don't have enough in their life to do like you and I, or you, or especially you at this time. But it's just amazing to me that these things come out and they just mushroom, and especially when you do it habitually. Now, both of these people, from what I read today, and you know, knowing of the prior story with the woman with Kurt Busch, and it's the same woman, obviously have done this before and basically had, you know, 15 minutes on the media or a little bit more than that. So I don't know where to go with this other than to say, you know, watch what happens, because this might be another couple of weeks in playing itself out. And you know, the gentleman with the diversity lawsuit, you're certainly not going to get any assistance from Steve Harvey if that's one individual. But it's just very interesting. I didn't know about the Coca-Cola story until I saw it on. Actually, it was a video on Steve Harvey's website that I saw it on, and I don't know why I turned that on, except that it was like a companion or a sidebar to the NASCAR story, and that's why I clicked it, just to see what else this gentleman was involved in and why he was getting Steve Harvey, of all people, involved. And that's why, because A, Steve Harvey happens to be African American, obviously, but also the fact of the Coca-Cola situation, and that I was unaware of. But again, the same gentleman involving minority youth, I guess you could say, in a situation, again, a protest situation. And again, I'm not entirely sure what his gripe was with Coca-Cola. Maybe the same, I don't know, that they're not hiring black people or African American, people. But I don't know. But obviously, the gentleman has a one-track mind, apparently. He goes looking for issues and ties them. This is my view of what, after reading two things on this guy, basically today, because I didn't know I was going to lead off the program to CJ, but basically I knew he was going to discuss it, and I read something, like I said, I started reading in detail the article that you touched on last night, and then that led to this other thing with Steve Harvey and this Coca-Cola thing. So I really don't know what this gentleman is looking to do, other than, you know, create a story, two stories now that we know of. So very interesting, and I never heard of the gentleman before, to be honest, and I didn't know. I knew the woman as being, you know, associated with Kurt Busch, but I didn't know. And then this was the second story, was her involved with this charity in a negative way, and then also her involvement, and I had forgotten her name. I had even took note of it, other than noticing that she was Kurt Busch's girlfriend, and that led to the domestic violence charge that was in the past, and I guess months ago. But very, very interesting two stories there. Again, off the racetrack, but NASCAR makes news where they don't necessarily want to, I guess. But they're definitely, from reading what NASCAR's response was, and you touched on this in the little bit that you read last night, they are prepared to fight this tooth and nail. And obviously this guy is known by some people to cause problems and to go about things in this manner in a lot of ways, in a lot of different circumstances, which I wasn't even aware of until, reading, as you said, last night. You said we're going to have to read up more on this gentleman, and that's exactly what I did. And I found out that there's more to him than, I guess, meets the eye or that came to light just in that one article. And there's a couple of more places that he's trying to infiltrate, as it were. So that's an interesting aspect of this whole thing. But we'll see what happens.
It kills me when you have somebody like this that wants to sue NASCAR for discrimination, and $500 million, I believe, is the price tag on this lawsuit. When NASCAR has all these different diversity programs, we have I'm not going to say probably, we have the most diverse field in NASCAR that we've ever had, and not only, the Sprint Cup Series, but every series. We have more females in the sport than we've ever had. We were having an opportunity to see some of the most talented drivers that we have ever got to witness that, a handful of years ago, 10, 15 years ago or so, I'm not going to say it was not a possibility. As we've had females in the sport since back in the 70s. My father was a outside tire changer for a female back in 77 for like 4 races. So, females have been around the sport. Now they have not gotten maybe the same opportunities and, maybe not quite as accepted as, well, I'm not going to say quite as they're saying, but accepted until recently. I'm not going to say Danica broke down the barriers, but she has really helped pave this path. There's been multiple and many other female drivers that have kind of broke down the barrier. Danica was just the one that happened to be able to break through those barriers and continue, letting everybody, I'm not going to say let, but everybody's rode that coattail. I'm not saying in a negative way. She's just showed the world that, yes, females can physically handle this. They can be on the big stage. They can do this year in and year out. Unlike the rest that it's, kind of come and gone. But to see NASCAR where they are now, to go to an event and see the most diverse, and I've been going to sporting events and NASCAR events since '95, and I by far see the most diverse crowd that I've ever seen in my lifetime when it comes to NASCAR. And yet there's still somebody out there that's going to try to find a way to cause an issue and want to bring up a lawsuit. And I'm not saying that, for all I know, yes, it is legit. I just find it hard to believe with the most diverse fan base, the most diverse field, and the most diverse programs out there that NASCAR has ever had in its history. I find it hard to believe that they have chosen this particular team or that particular race to discriminate against, especially since there's African Americans running in NASCAR, multiple athletes driving in NASCAR. Jesse Ajiwi, or however you pronounce his name, who I don't know, I can't remember if we've had him on this show, but I know he's been on Racing with Big Sweat, military guy, very, very, active on social media. I see his stuff all the time. I know that there's Darrell Walsh is another. There's multiple, African American drivers out there, Not to mention every other race. So we talked about last night. I'm not sure what Kyle Larson's nationality is, but it's not white. Marcus Ambrose, Eric Amarello. We could name driver after driver. We really sat there and thought about all the different nationality drivers out there. It just kills me. Yeah, it just kills me. There's so many. There's just so many people out there. There's somebody out there that is trying to, I don't know, to bring up this lawsuit when this sport is the most diverse it's ever been. I don't get it.
As I was reading up on this whole thing, taking in, knowing I would be discussing, or we would be discussing this at some level, I started to think, gee, I wonder if he's ever been put in touch with Amber Vulcan or, Kayla Lyons for that matter, or the truck. Unfortunately, her name slips my mind at the moment. The truck driver owner that we had on the show that Miss Lee booked earlier this year, and I can't. Joe, help me, CJ. I can picture her voice and her face, but I can't. The name slips my mind at the moment. But the lady who is the only team owner, female team owner in NASCAR. Jennifer Joe Cobb, yes. And I know that was like on her website that she is the only female owner in NASCAR. And I wonder if this gentleman, got the opportunity to be put in a room with these people, these women, if he would hold the same opinion, although I think his gripe, be that as it may, is more to the fortunately or unfortunately the color issue. But there is another element to that also, CJ, and I thought of this also in relation to different sports. Okay, he's saying that there's not a lot of drivers of color or competitors of color or owners of color in NASCAR, but you have to have a certain level of money. And one of the things that was brought up in other sports as well is like when you come from the inner city, okay, and largely if you are a person of color, African American, to use one example, you play more basketball, and that's not a racial statement. That's a true statement in terms of the playgrounds. And if you don't have a lot of money, all you need is a basketball and a hoop. And you can even address this one question to Izzo, because I remember when I was coaching youth hockey back in the day and working with kids, that was one of the things we brought up, is that with the equipment that you have to have, the helmet, the pads, there's an expense that goes along with that, okay? That people of, and again, not a racial statement, just the true fact that people of color, some may not, and that's why you see some players now in the NHL, but not as many, because money is involved in the sport. And the same thing before Tiger went into golf. Same thing. A lot of people said, people of color don't golf, and there was like Charlie Sifford was the only African American for some time in golf, and then when Tiger came on board, as it were, started at like 6 when he was trained by his father, or introduced to the game by his father. People were asking when he hit the PGA, will that bring more people of color into golf? And but that's, NASCAR is a sport where obviously you need money to participate. And if you are not, obviously some are, but if you are not fortunate enough to be in that tax bracket, you're not going to, form a team if you don't have the money to do so, regardless of the skin color. So that's the added element to that, is that you need money. You don't necessarily need money to get on a playground to play hoops, on playground. But you certainly need, to be involved in NASCAR, you certainly need to have, as we've stated many times on the shows on the 110 Nation, you need to have sponsorship behind you and the connections and whatever goes in connections to money to get involved. So a lot of the reason that people of color may not be involved, if to the extent that this gentleman apparently wants more involvement, it could very well have to do with money too, CJ.
Yeah. And another name out there is talking about African Americans and whatnot. There for a while, I don't know whatever happened to the deal. He just decided he didn't want to do it no more. Now, but Randy Moss, he owned a truck series team. I mean, like I said, it's not that it's not available. I just feel that because of the unfortunate financial situations and a sport that it takes a lot of money, and there's just a lot of families out there that cannot financially support having their children in a sport that costs so much, and on top of that, there not being such a rich history to kind of role model. I mean, there's not been a lot of other nationalities to include African Americans that have been in NASCAR. And when you look at other sports, these kids have somebody to look up to. They have the Michael Jordans. They have the Kobe Bryant. They have the Kareems. They have the Magic Johnsons. They have the Jim Browns. We can go the Jackie Robinson. You don't really have that in NASCAR. And so I think that's got part to do with it, that there's just not a rich history where you want to be like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be funny, but I mean, how many African-American boys grow up, I want to be Dale Earnhardt. I mean, it's just not, I've never once like, I want to be this person, when you're visualizing yourself growing up as a kid, being, a different nationality player, you sit there and visualize the best player of your nationality, and that's who you visualize yourself growing up to be. I think that's just how everybody is. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it. As you get older, you really could care less now. I'd love to be LeBron James or Michael Jordan. But growing up, that's I wanted to be Mark McGwire if I was a baseball player. Or I wanted to be, quarterback. I wanted to be like Bernie Kosar. Not the greatest quarterback, but that was Cleveland Browns quarterback at the time when I was growing up. But I think that's probably got a lot to do with it. Is a lot of these different backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, don't have a lot. And I think that's another reason why it took so long for there to be such an interest with females in the sport. Not that it wasn't, not that we didn't have females in the sport for the longest time. There was just no. I mean, how many females want to grow up once again and say, I want to be a Russell Wallace, or I want to be a, Kyle, or a Richard Petty. Now you got girls that grow up, I want to be a Danica Patrick or a Johanna Long or a Shannon Robinson, or, we can name names, Jennifer Jo Cobb. Now you start to have this, this history. You're starting to have, these roots in the sport. And so now we're starting to see that, more and more. And of course, the sport, and I think that's one of the reasons why now the sport is more diverse than it's ever been, is we've had over the last 10, 15 years an opportunity to start seeing more and more different, ethnic backgrounds and different, males and females in the sport.
Right, and I remember a couple of months back when you were bringing up diversity, even before this gentleman hit the news of recent vintage, we were discussing, you and I, just offhand, because I think we had, this was around the time we had Jennifer Jo Cobb on, too. We were discussing on your show about, people of other nationalities just in general. Would they ever get involved? And, I brought up things like Daniel Suarez, and you were even mentioning it was around the time, I think, of the Olympics, too. And we said, well, what about the Olympics and having different, race courses and different types of racing? And, just the idea that, just Suarez alone, maybe there's going to be a Mexican or South American kid that sees this, almost like also a at the time, Marcus Ambrose, maybe, a kid that followed the sport on the internet or through the computer or something, followed his career, and said, I want to, possibly try this. You have to have somebody to compare it to. Like you were saying, if you like basketball and you're a person of color and you Michael Jordan, you have that comparison. But if you have nobody out there to compare it to as you're growing up, and you have no reference point and no reference person to go by, and that's why you might not follow a given sport, because nothing, no one's out there at the time. And now, if more guys break in, guys and girls, I mean, obviously, like you were mentioning Danica, and I'm sure that gave rise to, Amber and different, females, like drivers like that now, and we've had, multiple members of the small tracks and on the show and people that, either drive a truck or, like Jennifer Jo Cobb and own the team and, so you're starting to see that happen, and it's a slow process. It's not going to happen overnight. But like you say, Danica probably opened the door for a lot of these women or girls at the time that grew into women and got into the sport, as they got older and obviously get a lot of them younger based on the ages that we're seeing now. But, you have to have something to compare it to, and that's why a lot of this didn't happen earlier, because you didn't see. I think I remember, as long as I've been following NASCAR, again, when you go back to age situations, but I've been around the sport a while, Shauna Robinson was like the only female. This was even before Danica got into NASCAR. A lady by the name of Shauna Robinson that was, running in the tail end of fields, but was the only woman who got into NASCAR that I recall at that time. And then you had Janet Guthrie, who also moved up from IndyCar, but didn't make as big an impact as Danica at NASCAR, but was also a tail ender, in terms of racing 43rd or 40th or 30th or, a back in the pack racer, but was out there. And obviously Danica, a little bit, greater impact. And that's why we're seeing what we're seeing now with a lot of the females getting involved. Aside from them having family connections, racing to begin with. How many of them say my father races, my brother raced, or whatever. That's also equally important. If you have nobody in your family that races, then you probably, you either have to love the sport for the sport, or, there's another way you get into it, or whatever. But most of it's because your family's involved.
Yeah. I take this opportunity. I gotta thank Fit for Life. Make sure you guys check them out on Facebook, Fit for Life. Go to our site, www.the110nationsports.com. The right-hand side, I got a nice little pretty banner for you. Yes, I made this super convenient. All you do is click on the banner. It lets you know if there's a location near you and where it is. All you got to do is click on that 24/7, 365. Get your gym on. Clean gym, courteous staff, everything you need. Make sure you guys check them out. That is Fit for Life. Also, Snafu Seasoning, the official sponsor of Racing with Big Sweat, Thursday nights, 9 p.m. All natural, no preservative, meat rub. All you got to do is call on the show, participate. Big Sweat will hook you up with a bottle of Snafu Seasoning. Got to thank I-95 Sports Network and Mile High Radio for rebroadcasting our shows or syndicating, however you want to call it. Without those guys as well, we would not be able to continue to grow at the rate we are growing. Like I said, we're in the talks of a couple other partnerships, and we're going to see what that's going to entail and how that's going to continue to help us grow. So very, very excited about that. There was one other story before we got off the air that I wanted to talk a little bit about as well tonight before we get Izzo on here, and I'm sure we'll have another topic before then. The Seattle Seahawks lose draft pick for violating off-season rules. Seattle Seahawks were once again, penalized for violating the NFL Players Association rules that prohibit excessive contact in all off-season workouts. On Monday, the NFL announced the team will be fined $400,000 and will forfeit its first week of 2017 organized team activities, which is 3 OTAs. Seattle will also forfeit its fifth-round selection in the 2017 draft. Coach Pete Carroll will be fined $200,000. The NFL and NFL Players Association independently reviewed the Seahawks' June 6 on-field practice video and agreed that the team violated the no live contact rule of the collective bargaining agreement. Seattle Seahawks coach Pete Carroll shed some light on the violation, telling reporters Monday the penalties were related to two helmetless players who banged heads and got injured during OTA. I've got to do a better job, Carroll said. We've got to make sure we're towing the line. We still didn't quite meet the standards the NFL wants. It's funny to me because this is the probably the most, if not second most physical sport. And it depends on if you and I ask an NFL fan or an NHL fan on which one's more physical. And yet, these guys are required to play two-hand touch for the most part throughout most of their training camp, OTAs, and all that stuff, which makes absolutely positively no sense. And of course, you know, we've seen many reports of the injuries being up. You know, one of the things that the reason they passed this in the collective bargaining agreement is they felt that the contact during practice is what's led to so many injuries during the season. But as we've all seen the report and just experienced ourselves, because there's no physical activity, basically because they were pampered and babied in the in practice in the OTA, it is causing even more injury because they're not physically getting themselves prepared for the live contact and the live play. It's humorous to me to know that one of the most physical sports that we have to offer here in the United States, and they're expected to tiptoe around and be two-hand touch pretty much the whole time, all the way up to leading to when they go live and play, you know, their preseason or regular season games.
Right. Well, just to expand a little bit on what you said, though, also what dawned on me or what came across my mind as I read this and what I can bring up when we discuss this, you know, later on. And that's how I read stories now with an idea of, okay, if CJ and I discuss this, what am I going to say about it? It's okay to make a rule like that as a league. okay, and say you can't, be excessive in the off season and give these guys a chance to their bodies to heal or whatever. I understand the reason behind it, but you would think in an isolated incident with one team like this, you would think if the guys on the Seattle Seahawks weren't complaining, then obviously it was within the realm of acceptability what they were doing, and whoever got hurt was just a matter of, that it can happen. It's nothing they did that was excessive to get these guys hurt, because the team themselves would have complained if they felt they were being, pushed too hard or whatever. You didn't hear it from the Seahawks. You didn't hear them complain. They took part in whatever drill was involved, or whatever activity was involved there. And it just came out, I guess, by virtue of the injury. But injuries can happen regardless. Injuries unfortunately happen in high school games. If you have two teams playing football or two even scrimmaging, two, in this case, drills or whatever, one team doing the drill, unfortunately people get hurt. And, it can happen. It's like the do you know what you signed up for idea, and, it struck me that nobody from Seattle was complaining. So why did the Players Association choose to make this an issue, or whoever, passed down this ruling? I guess Goodell or somebody, but nobody on Seattle prior to this coming out was complaining. So I didn't understand it myself, other than what you and I read in that little piece that you posted on the 110 page, which is where that came from, with Carol and so forth. But there was nothing excessive in there. It was just whoever got hurt, and then because the injury came to light, that's why this whole thing became, front and center in the media.
It makes you wonder how true what he said it had to do with players banging their head, two helmetless players banging their head on each other, because I don't know, I find it hard to believe that the NFL reviewing tape, that's what they find them for. I would imagine there had to be a little bit more to it than just two players having to banging their heads against each other and causing injury.
Yeah, it's very weird, because it seems to me that if you actually taking part in a drill, I could see maybe a little bit of horseplay, two guys fooling around with each other maybe and getting out of hand. But again, that would be behind closed doors, or not, in front of the, media or so forth. But if you're actually participating in a drill and you're helmetless, that's just stupid.
Yeah.
So I think from what I read, and like you say, helmetless, and it seems to me that they might have been like horse playing around on the field or something during a break, or during, some form of a break where they have their helmet off. Because if you're participating even in a drill without your helmet, that doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense.
No. I don't know, it just seems awful petty. And obviously, they use the word again. It's not the first time the Seattle Seahawks have found themselves in trouble. And so, that also, I take that into consideration, and they say, well, it's got to be a BS, completely. It just seems kind of weird that you had two players helmetless that headbutted each other, and that's what the stress is over. And
something else occurred to me in reference to that too, CJ. if you look at the past history of Seattle, say maybe 3 or 4 seasons in a row, maybe, you're seeing a successful team. And it struck me, maybe it's because I'm an AFC fan, I don't know, AFC East, but they're becoming the New England Patriots of the West. Or they're starting to be, because everything Seattle does, whether it's Richard Sherman opening his mouth or in the media, or their players becoming boisterous over something, or, little things like this, and I say little things because we don't know how complicated it really was. You're seeing that in the media, where I have to wonder if, I don't know, let me pick a team out of the blue. The Tennessee Titans, if they had 2 guys horse playing around on their field, would the Tennessee media pick up on it? I don't think so. Not for something like this. Not in a non-game day situation. Unless the media was there covering practice, then maybe. But not something that maybe got a little out of hand. I just think it made the media because it's the Seattle Seahawks, and that crossed my mind too. That could be, they could be starting, to look at Seattle more than your average team, and because of the success of the team, in the past couple of seasons. And I don't know, but it seems like New England makes news, and now Seattle for every little transgression, every little action. You seem to hear about certain teams and not about others.
One more topic I want to jump into before we get Izzo here in the studio. We got our top 25. Interesting top 25. Alabama, even though after their close loss this weekend, Ole Miss, they hold on to the number 1 spot, and remarkably enough, 50 votes as well. It's a little high to me for a team that's not really been that impressive so far. Still getting the dominant vote. Ohio State gets 4 votes at the 2nd spot. They moved up with that win over Oklahoma, that commanding win over Oklahoma. Louisville moves up to 3rd and got 6 votes with the smackdown. I don't know if I quite would feel that Louisville needs to jump up so high, even though they did put the smackdown on Florida State. I said it before, I will say it again, and I'll continue to say it. It's been this way for years. Florida State is highly overrated. I don't get the hype. I don't understand why they are ranked so high. They've not done anything other than 1 year when they had the easiest record. They played a combined of 81 and 81 teams. They played nobody. They played an Auburn team in for the national title. Yeah, that Auburn team that had 2 miracle plays, one against Alabama, that 107 or 108-yard field goal return, and the other one to get the game before to win the championship before that, or whatever it was before that. They weren't even the best SEC team. They just had a miracle play that got them into that opportunity. But Louisville moves up because of that. Michigan, 4th. So we got two potential Big Tens in the top 4. Clemson, 5th. Houston hanging around 6th, even after that Week 1 loss. Stanford 7, Michigan State 8, Washington 9th, Texas A&M 10th, Wisconsin. I guess you 4 in the top 11 there. At 11th, Georgia 12th, Florida State fell to 13th. Should be down farther. Tennessee has worked its way back up to 14th. Miami of University Hurricanes 15th. Baylor 16th, Arkansas 17th, LSU still hanging around there in 18th, Florida 19th, Nebraska 20th, 21st is Texas, 22nd San Diego State, Mississippi falls to 23rd, Utah 24th, and Oklahoma third. What were they? Third? No, they weren't third ranked. What, they were 11th ranked or something? Barely hanging in there, staying in the top 25. That is your new top 25. Mike, who do you root for in college?
I basically, it's interesting. The past couple of years now, I lived in Alabama in 2012, and my wife and I at the time lived in Alabama for 1 or 2 years, and Alabama and Auburn were the two biggest, obviously, TV draws there, and there was no pro team. The only pro teams you saw were telecast on a regular basis were from Georgia. But the interesting thing that I find is the past couple of years, my recollection of college football is the SEC being strong. And as you were reading down that first 10 or 11 teams, it struck me that this year it seems like the Big Ten is back again a little bit. You were reading down from, I believe, Ohio State, and then Michigan State was like 11. So from like the second to the 11th of that group that you just read, there were a sprinkling of Big Ten teams that haven't been there, for a while, like Wisconsin. You brought up Michigan, of course, with Harbaugh now. Hopefully, if you're a Big Ten fan or a Michigan fan, and I know you're an Ohio State fan, but if you're a Big Ten fan, they appear to be coming back a little bit. But I think, and Florida State was the other one that was interesting to me. And I think a lot of the reason they got, maybe still do, I don't know, is because for a long time, CJ, in the pros, when the draft came up, for some reason, the players a lot of the players drafted in the pros were from Florida State. High drafts. I'm not talking about, I mean like within the first 10 picks. If you played at Florida State, it almost gave teams the idea, we got to look at this guy because he's from Florida State. And I think it was the coach used to make a point of saying in interviews, I remember, when Bobby Bowden was there before, but even after him, Jimbo Elliott, I think his name is Jimbo something or other. Anyway, the Florida State coach used to go on interviews on TV and say, we pride ourselves in preparing our youngsters for the NFL, and they're ready because they play in a similar system to the NFL. And so I think that's why, I'm not sure that plays true like right now this season, but I know in the past that's been said many times, and maybe that's a reason, even more than talent, as you say with Winston, even more than talent, that's the reason why, because teams think that they are, ready for the pros because they're in that system. And I don't know if that is true to this day, but I remember that was stated in a lot of the media and a lot of the, things that I read also. They also on TV and in the media about, Florida State's program and preparing youngsters for youth for the pros, their players for the pros. And I think that a lot of that is reputation And probably the same holds true for Alabama staying at number one, although Saban is like, he can restock. He's one of those teams that, can lose a tremendous amount of graduates one year, and just based on, again, reputation, kids want to go, to play for that team. So, you're going to get more interest for a team like that than, Kutztown State or something. That just goes without saying. But I think a lot of this with Florida State, because like you said, this is not Deion Sanders anymore, or players of that ilk or that kind of talent. But I think some of it has to do with the reputation of the school and the reputation of how they prepare their team for graduation, but also the pros, to move on to the pros.
Did you see my post of the Alabama game where the referee moved the football?
Yeah. Yep. That could have been a surprise. That didn't anger a lot of fans. I could see that becoming an issue in Alabama too. Alabama and Auburn. When you heard about these rivalries, like, me coming from Long Island, born and raised on Long Island, you heard about, and I followed sports in general, you knew about the rivalry Alabama and Auburn, but the 1 or 2 years I was in Alabama, and to see the media and to see, now we would nowhere, my ex-wife and I lived nowhere near Tuscaloosa. But we're in the other side of the state, but it was like crazy. The weekend of Alabama and Auburn, that's all you saw. People dressed in, I think everybody washed their Alabama-Auburn gear for that entire week and just wore that for the entire week. I think when you went out, even my wife and I, at the time, you went out to stores, that's all you saw is people wearing either Auburn or Alabama gear. You didn't see any other type of, obviously pants, but I'm talking about the shirts or the jackets or what have it, hats, whatever. That whole week was like Alabama, Auburn crazy, absolutely nuts. And again, that had to do with the fact that you had no professional teams in Alabama. It was all college related. You were either a fan of Alabama, Auburn, or supposedly you had no interest. You didn't care who won. But more likely than not, again, you grew up. If you grew up in Alabama, which I didn't, but my ex-wife did, and she was an Auburn fan, and she tried to bug me, but I said, hey, look, I don't care one way or the other, because I wasn't born into it, If I had grown up in Alabama, I would have probably picked the choice, but we had some fun with that. We got some light of that, but she had some friends that were Alabama fans that she used to bug that week and so on. But it was really big, and your team goes through it with Michigan every year, I suppose, right? That's the big thing, Ohio State, the week of Ohio State and Michigan.
Oh yeah, it was funny. I had a customer, and we're gonna get to Izzo in here. I had a customer in the other day, and he had a Michigan shirt on, so I got to talking to him. And he was talking about his wife being an Ohio State fan. I said, you know, there's certain fans that I couldn't date. I'm sorry, but a Michigan fan is not one of them. There's two of them right out of the gate that you'll never have to worry about me dating. One's a Michigan Wolverine fan, the other one's a Dale Jr. fan. Just can't do it. And he said, you know, the funny thing is when we first dated, that I forget how they met. I think it was something to do with Michigan. I think they went to Western Michigan or something else is where they actually went to school. She was like, she was not an Ohio State fan. Like, her family was. And any time that they would go, you know, go visit her family, of course, he had to hear it. And, you know, it was one of those things. But it was what it was. Because, but then all of a sudden, she became an Ohio State fan. And she was just like, what the hell just happened? And I got a good chuckle out of that. But, you know, there's certain fans that without a shadow of a doubt, I couldn't date. I couldn't date a Michigan Wolverine fan, a Dale Jr. fan. I'd be I'm 99% sure I couldn't be with a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I don't know if I could be with a Yankee fan either. There's certain fan bases that I just clash. I don't know, the Yankee fan wouldn't be so bad. The Dale Jr. thing, my dislike for Dale Jr. and his popularity for absolutely positively no reason at all, other than his last name. And you can't talk to a Dale Jr. fan. You will talk to the wall. But the other two is more of a rivalry thing. I could not have 2 games a year against the Steelers or the big game every year with Ohio State and Michigan and have to go through that or listen to them talk about their team or this, that, and the other. Yes, it would be a little bit easier if they'd be in a Michigan Wolverine fan because they've sucked for so long. Granted, they're in the top 4 this year, and they look like they finally turned their program around. But the Steelers beating up on my Browns all the time, yeah, that just wouldn't be something I could do.
Well, just my 2 cents on the Dale Jr. thing. I think what turned a lot of people off, and I follow NASCAR, and like you say, it doesn't matter. You know, like you can be a non-Dale Jr. fan, but I think what turned a lot of people off that aren't fans of Dale Jr. Is the reason, and I know I said this on the 110 Nation when I started with you, and we discussed sports across the board. One of the things the major thing that turned people off, in my opinion, is that he won Driver of the Year for so long, in so many consecutive years, without winning a race. You know, without doing anything that would warrant that except fandom. That's all. Having so many fans, you know, Dale Junior Nation, and all that, voting him in the Driver of the Year when he really didn't do anything on the track to warrant it. And I think that's what turned, if you're a Dale Jr. non-fan, that's what gets under your skin more than anything else. You know, at least that's my take on it. I don't know if that's true, but I think that, you know, that's where other than the concussion this year and sitting out, that's where Dale Jr. made news most of the seasons. You know, he'd win like maybe one race a year, and get down to the end, and you get the awards for the champions, whoever that was, Jimmy Johnson, Kyle Busch, whoever it was, all through the years, and then, you know, you get to the Driver of the Year, and okay, who's our, you know, 2000 this and 2000 and this and this and this, and it, you know, it kept being Dale Jr., and you just scratch your head going, well, what did he do to win this? Other than having a fan base, you know, unlike any other, and that's the other thing. There are people that are like you and I'm neutral. I could care less. I mean, I'm not necessarily pro Dale, and I'm not necessarily anti-Junior. It doesn't bother me either way. But the point being, you know, if you're anti, that's what really turns you off, I feel. And the idea is that even people such as yourself that say, you know, you're not a fan of Dale Jr., and that's fine, but the idea is I think it's surprising that there aren't, no matter who is against Dale Jr., there'll always be more for him than against him. It's like he can, and I said this on our programs on the 110 Nation a couple of times in reference to other things. I think, you know, NASCAR penalties and so forth. There's nothing that guy can do to turn, never mind NASCAR, to turn fans off. You know, there is absolutely nothing that Dale Jr. can do to turn his fans against him. And it's just amazing for him. You know, bravo for him. It just amazes me where other people can, you know, cut somebody off in a race and everybody's talking about him, you know. But you have a racing incident and everybody's talking about him, oh, he's this, he's that. Dale Jr. could do anything on the track and off, and I have yet to see the fan base at large turn against him.
I agree. Without a doubt. We got Izzo in the studio hanging out with us. He's going to come on and talk some NHL, talk about the World Cup. Got some great stuff for us. Just published an article, I want to say yesterday, either today or yesterday, but it seemed like yesterday, over at the www.110nationsports.com site. Make sure you guys check that out as well. But without any further delay, let's get him in the studio. Izzo, how you doing tonight?
Oh man, I'm not doing too well right now. USA is down in the second period with about 6:20 to go. They're down to Canada 4-1. So, you know, there's still plenty of hockey. I'd like to see a little bit of life, but it's not looking too good for the U.S. right now, Jay.
Well, what happened tonight that got them down so bad?
Well, I think a couple bad goals. John Tavares was the one that just scored the most recent goal for Team Canada. It seems there might have been some goaltender interference. The play wasn't reviewed. Coming from my, you know, just my spectrum of being a goaltender, I felt like maybe that should have been looked at, you know, like I said, at least reviewed to see what was going on with that. But overall, Canada's pretty much owned, you know, quality chances, has owned pretty much a majority of the attack time in the offensive zone, and, you know, and they just have so much talent right now. USA right now is just, you know, playing individually instead of as a team right now, it seems. They did pretty well as a team during the pre-tour and everything like that, but right now it's just not looking too good for them. Not really getting, you know, getting the puck deep, creating a forecheck. They're not owning the attack time at all. So it's been very difficult for Team USA these first two games.
Now, speaking of the video, does the World Cup, do they have the same instant replay and review policies in effect as such as the NHL?
Yes, they do, yeah. Most, just like in the NFL where every goal or every touchdown is looked at, that's pretty much the same thing that goes on in the NHL. So, yeah, the NHL rules, you know, on review are being used in the World Cup. And, you know, we've seen a couple reviews, you know, so far in this tournament and everything like that. I'm pretty sure the one game with I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, had 3, you know, reviews in less than 2 minutes of, you know, during the game and everything like that. So, you know, I have seen the review. I was kind of upset that I didn't see it on that fourth goal by Canada, but hey, you know, it didn't really seem like there was a lot of bumping and grinding and, you know, roughhousing going in, crashing into the net. But, still I'd like to see that play being reviewed.
Well, you've got an opportunity to, at least 1 week, if not, what are we, about 2 weeks into the World Cup, or is it just 1 week so far?
Just 1 week so far. We're a couple days into it, so we've seen everybody is playing. If everybody hasn't played their second game already, everybody's playing their second game tonight. So we're a solid 2 games into the tournament right now.
Now, I have had a busy 2 or 3 days, been on the road, been to Charlotte, been to Florence, had an inspection today, so I've not had an opportunity to sit down and check out the articles. But you did a couple pieces about North America. Are you impressed with the North American team? And let us shed light a little bit on what the articles are about. Don't give too much away so the readers have a reason to get over there. But give us a little heads up of what's going on with Team North America and what got you inspired to want to write about them.
Well, if we like we see on the roster, everybody on Team North America is comprised of Canada and U.S. Under the age of 23. And they're a very, it is a very, depth-oriented roster, if I might say. I mean, you have Nathan McKinnon, Johnny Goudreau, Brendan Saw, Ryan Murray, Seth Jones, and all 3 of those guys I just named all play for your Columbus Blue Jackets. Colton Perricone, who's a bright young star for the St. Louis Blues, who has a howitzer of a shot and just amazing skating ability for his size and everything. I've mentioned him in past shows before throughout this past playoffs. This team is just loaded for speed, Jay, and if we know anything, especially from Pittsburgh winning the Cup, speed kills. And I believe that in any sport, really, basketball, football, anything like that, speed does kill. And that is something that Team North America possesses on their roster. And it's been crucial for them. They've cruised through the pre-tournament and everything like that, and now they're 1-1. Took a bad, kind of an ugly loss last night to Russia, 4-3. But at one point in time, they were down 4-1 in that game and managed to storm back in a matter of 8 minutes, scoring 2 goals to really change the outlook of the third period. If you look at Team Russia in that game, Team Russia is comprised of nothing but goal scorers left and right. With Malkin, Datsuk, Ovechkin, Kucherov, and all these guys. These guys have tremendous skill and everything like that. So it's going to be it's definitely been one heck of a ride for North America. They could be easily 2-0 right now. Listening to Brett Hall and Chris Chelios, who are 2 Hall of Fame players that I grew up watching. Brett Hall being the son of legendary forward Bobby Hall from those great Chicago Blackhawks teams, and being one of the main guys in the WHA when the WHA was formed. After or before the expansion, the second expansion or first expansion, of the NHL. So, listening to those 2, Chris Chelios is a long time, Chicago Blackhawks, Detroit Red Wings, Montreal Canadiens. He's played for a list of teams, and was one of those ageless wonder guys who played it well into his late 40s, and everything like that. Even when he quit, when he didn't really have time in the NHL, he was still playing minor league hockey at the age of 48, 49. So these 2 guys are none the brighter to really get your hockey knowledge from. And watching them and, describing Team North America, they both agreed that you could put that team into the NHL league, in any conference or division or whatever, and they'd win a Stanley Cup within 2 years, if not their first year, just because of all the talent that they seem to possess right now. Matt Murray's been playing pretty well. He got pulled last night after allowing 4 goals on 4 shots. So I do believe that was kind of like a fatigue issue. They played the night before, and had a little bit of a break but from the pre-tourn to the round robin in the tournament and everything like that. So I do believe we'll see Matt Murray and net Thursday in their next game and everything like that. And I do believe that they hold a fairly good chance of controlling their own destiny and getting to the playoffs, Jay.
Now, I know that we're just a few games into this World Cup, but who's impressed you the most so far?
Well, two teams really come to mind. Obviously, one being Team North America, especially just the way they've performed so far. You know, putting 4 goals up on Finland in the first game, winning 4-1, and then managing to really try and roar and come back from a 4-1 deficit and almost doing so last night against Russia. So I think through the first game, Matt Murray's save percentage was at 96%, where clearly isn't that after the second game. The first game, though, I think the roster had about 10 to 12 guys that registered a point in that first 4-1 win. And I think now that I believe more than half the roster has registered a point for Team North America. The second team I'm really impressed with was Team Sweden. Team Sweden is 2-0 right now. They're pretty much in control of their fate right now for getting into the playoffs. I do believe that they will make the playoff rounds and everything like that, especially with the injuries that they've had to their team. One of the bigger ones was Henrik Zetterberg, captain of the Detroit Red Wings, was hurt, pre-tournament games and everything like that. So he was, scratched from that roster. There's been a couple more, key guys that they've missed that they've picked up from the Swedish Elite League, trying to, replenish that roster, and have really performed well. Jacob Markstrom, I had to replace Henrik Lundqvist, from the Rangers, who was out with the flu their first game for Sweden. Markstrom came in and performed very well. He's another one of those big goaltenders that I like to watch, the 6'4", 6'5" type that really soak up a lot of net, guys like Bishop and Holtby and all these other guys that are really big in net and just soak up a lot of net. He played very well. And had an amazing first game, especially replacing Henrik Lundqvist, who is, a king in his own right. So Lundqvist did return tonight for Sweden's game when they beat Finland 2-0. It was a fairly easy game for Sweden and everything like that. I'm just very impressed. The Swedes have always been, one of the best hockey teams in the world. Have produced some amazing guys, through time and time again. You got the Sedin twins. You got Louis Eriksson, who was actually just traded to Vancouver, so he's going to be playing along with the Sedin twins and everything like that. So, they have the offensive skill. The goaltending is there. The defense is a little suspect, but it seems to be getting the job done and done quite well. So I've been impressed with Sweden and North America so far in this tournament. And, if these two teams end up matching up in a playoff round, that would be a series to watch, Jay.
Now, likewise, we got to go in the opposite direction here for a second. So far, who's been the most disappointing?
Well, right now I'd have to say Team USA, and maybe, it's kind of hard to pick a second one. Russia really comes to mind, who are 1-1 now. We all remember the old days of the 80s, the 70s, and the 60s where the Soviets were just dominating the ice hockey world for decades upon decades going in, and now with how Team Russia has been playing, in past decades, recent past decade, whether it be the Olympics or some sort of international form of a tournament, Russia just hasn't really been what Russia has been known for. Since the Soviet Army team, since the Soviet Union collapsed, the Soviet Army team no more, you don't see guys like, Viktor Kozlov, Igor Larionov, Slava Vtitsov, Sergei Fedorov. You don't see these guys in that type of play anymore, So I think the Russians, they're just loaded with talent. And, I mean, anytime you have, part of your roster coming out of Russia and the U.S. from the NHL, you got a stacked team. Malkin, Malkin, Ovechkin, Datsuk, Sergei Bobrovsky, who is the goaltender for your Columbus Blue Jackets, who's actually played, rather well, especially in the second game. Made a few key glove saves to keep Russia on top. He seems to be looking pretty good. I think another 2 games, maybe with some meaning, will really fine-tune him for the NHL season coming up. The Columbus Blue Jackets are going to really rely on Sergei Bobrovsky. And on the other hand, Team USA, man, Team USA was, picked to be in the top 3, at the end and everything. And here they are. They've already lost one to Team Europe. And that Team Europe was no slouch either. With all man games combined, they had over, I think, what was it, 12,000, games played and everything like that. I think it was 1,200. I'm pretty sure it was 1,200. It's been a long week. I haven't really got a lot of sleep in watching this World Cup game, so please forgive me. But USA has been, they played as a team in the pre-tournament. We've seen that, especially with the style of play, splitting with Canada, early on and everything. Kind of gave, the coaching staff some hope. But right now, they just seem to be playing individually. There's really not a lot of cohesion going on right now. They can't get the forecheck going. When you got to go up against, primarily a lot of captains that are on Team Canada, it's not going to be an easy task, but it's not an impossible one at the same time. USA has just not been playing very good defense. They're not clearing out the slot so Quick can get a clean, good look at a shot coming in. And be able to make his reads on the ice to, make saves and everything. He's made some beautiful saves. He's played as well as I think he can play. I do believe the defense is kind of lacking on the U.S. side right now. And maybe it's a couple guys that they have on their roster that they, expected bigger things of. I mean, you have a couple big-name U.S. players that are still at home right now watching this. One that comes to mind is Phil Kessel. Phil Kessel from the Penguins was on a tear in the playoffs, leading the Pens in points during the playoffs and everything like that. So he was definitely up in the top ranks of scoring in the playoffs, and I was really surprised that, he was overlooked and everything like that. So, I would expect more from Pavelski and Kane and everything, especially these 2 guys who have been on this stage before and have been for a while. Jonathan Quick has definitely been the face of U.S. goaltending, in the last recent years. Before that, it being Ryan Miller, back in them heydays, So USA is just not playing as a team right now, Jay. I mean, they had a power play earlier in this Canada game, and they just couldn't get the puck in deep. Canada was playing the blue line very solid. Kind of like the old school days with the Mongol, empire and everything like that. Canada just making that wall and just staying true to it, not letting the U.S. Really chip pucks in and, create a forecheck. So it's definitely not looking too good for the U.S. right now. If they end up losing this game, I don't really see them qualifying for the playoffs unless some God-given miracle happens for them. But they haven't scored enough goals. They haven't really performed well enough to deserve a spot in the playoffs right now, Jay. And for that, I guess I'm going to have to just put my hopes in Team North America right now.
I'm sorry. I guess it's time for my guy to speak up in the locker room, huh, Izzo?
Well, I'd have to say, if it would start with the coach, really coming down on the players. Going into a third period, it is very difficult to come back against a team with a 3-goal lead. That's a feat. Is it possible? Yes. Getting that motivation, you got to have that guy. You got to have that voice. I mean, you have to have that guy in the locker room that really rallies the troops and everything like that. And I don't know who this person's going to be right now for Team USA. Could it be Derek Stepan? Could it be Patrick Kane? Could it be, maybe a guy like Joe Pavelski, who's definitely, been some sort of a decent leader in his career, especially for the San Jose Sharks. Zach Parise is another guy that comes to mind that needs to be, maybe that locker room presence of like, come on, guys, this is, we're better than this, You do get those moments and everything like that, and maybe that's, something that, you could maybe possibly use. You could use a big hit, an excellent play, a very good quality scoring chance to really change, the momentum of a game. I mean, you can see multiple goals scored in seconds in this league, and even in this game, in general. So, is it possible to really, strike once real quick and maybe another one quick after that? Then you got a different ball game because you're at, instead of 2 goals, 3 goals down, you're 1 goal down. So, the 3-goal lead is one of the hardest ones to defend in the league and everything like that. And if it becomes a 2-goal game, it gets even more difficult for Canada. But Canada has that. Canada just has that skill and that prowess and that roster to really just neutralize Team USA right now.
Right. No, I just was surprised that, like you were saying, like the last third period or whatever, and with their chance to swim, I'm surprised that no one really, stepped up and said anything. Not so much, scored, but just, like you say, a locker room presence.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, whether it's somebody saying something in the locker room or a play, a hit, a steal, a move, defense, a great save can really, they may be small things, that are part of the game, but they're huge momentum boosts. And I think USA needs a really big, maybe couple momentum boosts to really get the morale going for the team right now. So, you're going to be looking for something like that, early on in the period. I expect USA to really try and come out and to control the tempo and put some urgency, essentially maybe run like a 2-minute offense, or what you would equivalent to a 2-minute offense in football. So I expect them for the first 3-4 minutes to really try and change the tempo of the game and how it's going to be and how it's going to finish out, Mike. So, it's hopefully USA has they got the heart and the pride to really try and make something of this, or they're just going to kind of continue what they're doing, just squandering around.
If they will lose tonight, what are the chances? Like I said, I know you said they were slim, but how many other games do they have before, they get to like an elimination round or whatever the next round is called?
Well, they have one more game left. They'll play the Czech Republic on Thursday at 7 p.m. on ESPN2. At 0-2 right now, especially with the way the standings go right now, with Team Europe at 2-0, who's been a big surprise, and Canada at 1-0 right now. And if Canada wins, that would pretty much seal up the chances for the U.S. making the playoff round. So, right now all fingers and all evidence are pointing at Europe and Canada coming out of Group A, and then there's going to be a pretty intense matchup with North America and Russia. I don't know if those teams play again off the top of my head, but they're going to have to, that'll be maybe a tiebreaker that might come into play and everything like that. So, North America's next game is Sweden. That's going to be a pretty important game. We're going to see how that really goes. And Russia has the better matchup playing Finland. Finland, who is no wins so far throughout this tournament. So these are two big games for both North America and Russia, and they control their own fate. I like the way Team North America has been playing. Like I said, that fast, speedy, up-tempo hockey has really got it going for them right now. Russia, they got to do something to keep their chances alive. They haven't really looked really good and sharp. Maybe here in a few spurts, few chunks of time they've looked, like how Russia is supposed to look. But overall, Bobrovsky has really kept that team going and keeping them in games and everything like that. So I'm going to be looking for another big night from Bobrovsky. So Russia's matched up with Finland. Finland is really kind of reamping their roster right now. A lot of young guys on that roster. So not a lot of experience except on the front end with Jussi Jokinen and Mikko Koivu and a few others on that team and everything like that. But North America definitely has a task in front of them tomorrow at 2 o'clock on ESPN. So I would look forward to that game tomorrow afternoon. If you guys are just hanging around doing nothing, throw on ESPN at 2 o'clock and watch this North America-Sweden game. This game is going to have a lot of effects in the bracket and everything like that. So I would pay attention to it. Grab your favorite beverage, and let's see what the Swedes can do against Team North America.
Yep. Okay, Enzo. Thanks.
No problem, Mike.
Well, let the fans know before we get you out of here where they can follow you so they can continue keeping up with you throughout the World Cup and as we get ready for the 2016/17 NHL season.
You can follow me at 110 Puckhead. Let's forecheck. We're getting to that favorite time of the year for all of us Puckheads. Fall is, almost officially fallen upon us, and we're going to have some pretty good hockey. We got this World Cup going on right now, so it's only going to be a good experience gainer, practice boost, and everything to get into hockey speed and hockey shape. So follow me at 110 Puckhead. Let's talk some hockey.
Izzo, as always, gotta thank you. Glad to have you here. Looking forward to getting updated next week. You enjoy your weekend. We'll be talking soon.
Oh yeah, Jay. Good night, Mike. You guys take it easy.
Take care.
Yes, sir. Oh, another show down. We got Gus Dean joining us at 9 o'clock tomorrow. We got Shannon, one of our writers. He's joining us. He's making a weekly stop in here at the 110 Nation on Wednesday night. So looking forward to having both of those on. Of course, Mike will be in the studio with me tomorrow night. Make sure you guys check us out on Twitter. You can follow me at TJ Sports 1. You can follow the 110 Nation at 110 Nation. You can also follow Mike at Stats108. Also, check us out on Facebook, my personal fan page, Mr. CJ Sports, Mike's fan page, Hot Laps with Stats, the 110 Nation fan page, 110 Nation Sports. Also, check out our site, www.the110nationsports.com for all the latest going on here at the 110 Nation. Got to thank Fit for Life, Snafu Seasoning, I-95 Sports Network, Mile High Radio. Without these guys, we would not be able to continue to grow and do the things we get to do. Don't forget, I'm going to be out at the Kentucky Speedway this weekend, Friday and Saturday, hanging out for the ARCA Series and Xfinity Series race. Looking forward to being out there. If you're going to be out there, let us know. I'd love to have an opportunity to personally thank you for your support here at the 110 Nation. Back on the whole support thing. We're going to start the show and finish the show the same way. I'm also looking forward to catching up with the fans. The drivers, PR that have come on the show, have helped make the show what it is. So looking forward to that. So make sure if you are out and about, like I said, get a hold of me, MrCJSports@gmail.com, or hit me up on Twitter or Facebook. We'd love to have an opportunity to thank you, get your thoughts, your ideas, and whatnot. Mike, had another fun night tonight. Thanks for hanging out with me.
You got it. Anytime, CJ.
Yes, sir. 8 o'clock. Be right here. 110 Nation Sports Show. Until then, you guys have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the 110 Nation Sports Show with Mr. CJ Sports. You are a part of the 110 Nation, so be sure to visit the110nation.com for everything related to the show. You can follow CJ on Twitter at 110Nation and on Facebook at 110 Nation Sports. Until next time.
When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can be confusing. Like Swedish techno confusing.
Bark, bark, meow, meow. Dance with me, purple cow. Bark, bark, meow, meow. Ooh, you lovely cow.
Geico makes it easy. With 24/7 access, all you have to do is go to Geico.com and you could save money on car insurance. It just makes sense. Unlike,
Dance with me, purple cow. I like your moves.
Welcome to Staples.
Oh, Staples guy, help. I need a presentation printed fast.
Well, have no fear. Staples is here. We can print same or next day.
Wow. Oh, but my budget has me handcuffed.
Well, right now, get 20% back in rewards on all color printing. Brochures, flyers, even signs.
Staples guy, you're my hero.
I prefer Prince Charming. Prince, because of our color printing.
Yep, I got it.
Get 20% back in rewards on all color printing. Staples. Make more happen.
Ends 10/29/16. Exclusions apply. For full details, visit staples.com/rewards.